Well, let me go ahead and start here then. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for giving us some time out of your day or your evening, wherever it is that you're dialing in from. User groups are so important. I love them. Love being extremely interactive in them too. But my name, again, Alex Powers. I'm located in St. Louis, Missouri. I've been out in the community for quite a while. Excel, kind of my background, Power BI, just attending like a dashboard in a day. So especially as you hear like these RAG in a days, Fabric analyst in a day, like all these different events, like they're not going to teach you like the 500 level of expertise. It's really to like start getting the wheels turning of ideas. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't think that I could do this. Hopefully at the end of the day, you've gotten your free sandwich, your free knowledge, you're hitting the road and you're saying, I got this. When you get back to your desk on Monday. This whole crazy world, though, of Microsoft Fabric, like I'm still trying to figure out where I fit in, where I can collaborate with people best, especially pro code people like Sandeep. I say, Sandeep, I've got this amazing thing. And he says, oh my gosh, let's work on it together. Let's collaborate. Let's productionalize this. It's just such a fun way, especially with the platform just getting bigger and bigger, that we can all bring kind of our own interests, our own talents, our own backgrounds. I know we kind of heard about machine learning there too. But, where do we fit in? And that's for me, data factory. I want to data factory everything. I want to power query everything. I love UI menus. I love buttons. I love clicking things. And of course, now with Copilot's doing it for me, it's just a new exciting time for data ingestion. I don't want anyone to leave today thinking that I'm just like a technical robot at Microsoft and I don't have any personal interest outside of work. So we talked about it a little bit. I'm a moderator of the Power BI community over on Reddit and the Microsoft Fabric community. So we are the largest business intelligence product out there for Power BI. So we were at 136,000 members. And why am I talking about this? Like, you're like, Alex, shut up about these numbers. No, hold on. If we take these 136,000 Power BI users today and turn them into Microsoft Fabric users tomorrow, like how incredible is that thought? 136,000 people developing, building things, kind of with these data pipelines, with these lakehouses, warehouses, notebooks, all these other amazing things. We'd be the largest developer platform in the world.
Think of the career opportunities, right?
Yes.
Like kind of breaking out of the box.
Absolutely. And then, of course, with Microsoft Fabric, we're, kind of a year and a half, I think, into it now here with the public forum, already almost at 10,000 members. So 136,000 to 10. Next year, I want to be at 25. Hopefully, maybe even 50. I don't know. I don't know how far is this going to take off and how quickly. It's just really exciting for me to kind of think about it from that community aspect. I love my Chicago Bears. Ironically, like I'm usually like crying and defeated by this point in the season, but they're actually doing pretty good. So maybe there'll be we can let the 1985 Bears kind of do their thing with the Super Bowl shuffle. Maybe we'll come up with something cool there too. And then, of course, I just love my cats. At the end of the day, sign off, let your brain kind of come down a little bit from all this technology. Just find a way to unwind. Here in the bottom left-hand corner of my socials. So find me over on Reddit. Go ahead and start yelling at me saying, Alex, what is this thing showing up? How do I get this thing unblocked? Let me know. We absolutely love our community over there. I'm starting to promote Blue Sky as well. So if you're like, I'm looking to get off of Twitter or X, is there a home for us in the data community? Come hang out over on Blue Sky. And then, of course, LinkedIn, X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But I treat my social medias like they're Pokemon. I just got to collect them all. I've got to be everywhere. I've got to see everything that you're kind of doing. And then, of course, at some point, you may find me over on some of the YouTube channels. So usually if there's something amazing that I want to kind of share within Power Query, you may see me over on the GuideCube channels. I've done a couple of videos over there. Hopefully you have one here coming soon for Copilot. Awesome. Let's get to the fun stuff. Microsoft Fabric. So how many people here are using Microsoft Fabric today? Pause there. Let me know in the chat.
Get some hands in the air.
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand. I'm very curious how many people are using Microsoft Fabric. We've got about 3, got about 4.
I know there's more than that. I know
a couple more hands coming up. Me. We've got about 5. All right, there's a couple here. There's a couple here. All right, thanks everyone for throwing your hand in the air. How many people here are using Power BI? How many people are like, that Fabric thing, that's its own thing, but I'm a Power BI person. That's what I do. I'm very curious. I'll pause there. How many people are using Power BI? Right, I'm seeing 3 hands raised. Occasionally, Mark said 4.
Wait, is there a difference?
That's what I'm going to try and find out here with the hands raised.
Thank
All right, so some people said yes. I'm a Power BI, PBI there. Thank you so much for letting me know. So I want you to like step back. It's no longer this is Fabric, this is Power BI. It's all one. So especially if you think of like M365. So if you're like, well, I use Excel and I use Outlook, I use Word, you're using various components of this umbrella terminology, which is Microsoft 365, Office 365. Just like if you're saying, well, I'm a Power BI user only, you are now a Microsoft Fabric user. So whether you classify it or not, Microsoft Fabric is just an umbrella term. So especially as I'm now thinking, again, my background was Excel into Power BI, I'm saying, all right, well, what are the tools I have kind of now in my toolkit with this whole Microsoft Fabric thing? So we have our data factory, we have our data engineering, data warehousing, data science, real-time intelligence, of course, Power BI, and just more and more amazing things. But really, it's this foundation that we've kind of built here, which is our One Lake. So if you're familiar with data lakes, if you've ever heard these words, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage, it's just a place to throw all your stuff. So One Lake here, get your data, throw it in the lake, start building on top of it. And I want to talk about this one more time here. I apologize. Marketing never lets me take this slide out. They say, Alex, you have to leave that in. All right. So they say that OneLake is the OneDrive for data. What do you do with OneDrive? Just like close your eyes, thinking about it a little bit. What do you do with OneDrive? You throw your stuff in it, right?
Store files in there.
issues.
Yeah, you store files, you share with other people, right?
Use it as a version control.
I love that too. Yeah. Version 1.1.9.7. It's a place to store your information that's important for your organization. It's a place where you can share and collaborate with other people. As simple as a dot menu. Here's my data. Here's the group I want to kind of share with. Maybe it's a team, maybe it's a large security group, whatever it is. Really kind of thinking about OneLake from that perspective of like, once we get data into OneLake, really just a lot of these opportunities start opening themselves up. So here with OneLake, all the engines can read data that has been stored in OneLake in this optimized file format, which is going to be Delta Parquet. So if you start hearing that word, if you're like, I don't deal with Parquet files today, don't worry, that's fine. We're just storing the files in a column-based format, compressing those, making them really fast in terms of your analytical reads. And then depending upon which engine you're using, which experience you want to build on top of, once data is in the OneLake, once it's in that format, any of these engines can start reading on top of it. So if you're a Power BI user, you start building your Power BI reports directly on top of these tables. If you're a warehouse builder and you're like, I want to write T-SQL, that's my language of choice. Absolutely. Let's get those tables into the warehouse experience. Or maybe it's a notebook, #notebook everything. I want to write PySpark directly on top of those tables. It's not having to duplicate your data. It's not having to, have a bunch of redundancy all over the place. It's one file. It's one version that any engine can start reading on top of it because it's stored out in OneLake. So I'm just a huge fan there. And then our 4 pillars, this is kind of getting to just our vision here. We're going to think about Fabric as kind of the complete analytics platform. So just SaaSified. We want everything as easy as possible, just like Power BI. So again, if you're a Power BI user, you may notice that it looks like a workspace that has the new same buttons there for creating items, secured and governed just through your Entra ID profiles that you already have existing today. This lake-centric and open architecture. So again, just the one lake, it's one copy of data, and then kind of open at every tier, just across the different engines. But really for me, it's these last two that are most important, which is empowering every business user, and then also AI-powered experiences. Professional big data engineering is not my background. I'm a citizen data integrator, citizen data professional here in terms of Power BI. That's what I love. It's what I know. But I'm learning new talents and skill sets, just as I have new tools kind of added to my toolkit. So how do I take users who have these desperate needs today to say, I need to do bigger things. IT is constrained. I can't get to my project until 6, 12, 18 months out. I know I could do this today if I just had the tools. So how do we make things feel familiar and similar like M365 products? We did that with Power BI, right? We brought analysis services to everyone's desktops. And of course, here with the AI-powered experiences, just everything is booming now. How do we infuse AI at every turn? Just think about it from like a Copilot lens as well. So those are the big pillars for us. For me, Data Factory in Microsoft Fabric, kind of with this image here, it looks and feels a little bit like Power Automate for me. I'm very familiar with having those activity icons, creating kind of an orchestration event to say, do this task, do this next task. If something fails, maybe send an email, send me a Teams notification, whatever it is. But having like a drag and drop based interface. So if you've never built a data pipeline before, whether it be Azure Data Factory or maybe even like Synapse pipelines, now brought into Fabric, if you notice the ribbon, it should look very familiar, just like an M365 ribbon that you have in Excel, that you have in Office, that you have in what Outlook, Word today. It's the same approach. How do we make things feel more familiar for our end users? One of those tasks here, especially with data pipelines, is if you've never built one before, we have these built-in templates. Point and click directly in the product. Maybe it's bulk moving a bunch of tables. Maybe it's a bulk moving a bunch of files that are stored out in your lakehouse, whatever it is. Kind of a point and click ingestion pattern here for you. Just if you've never done it before, but you want to get it up and running quickly. Again, back to the complete flexibility here with an orchestration pipeline. You're copying some data. You're maybe transforming it with your data flows, maybe sending a notification to your team at the very end here, especially if it's like an Outlook or Teams message, maybe even refreshing your Power BI data set at the very end. So just chaining all of those events together, again, just through like a low code, no code interface. This one is crazy. I say this openly because this was the best 5x5 experience that I've had in a long time. So what does 5x5 mean to us at Microsoft? It means 5 seconds to sign up and 5 minutes to wow. So from the time you click that button of create new copy job, you can then start bulk creating ingestion for all these tables just through a simple UI interface. So especially if you're like, well, I have this database that our organization uses that connects for all of our end users. We're using dataflows today. We'd really like to start scaling that in the future. All we are doing is copying them. We're not transforming them or doing anything else. The copy job, just a simple, I think I counted the other day, 5 clicks and I was done. This could be hundreds of tables. And then it could also be through like CDC connectivity if you have like a real-time need, just as a change data capture as new events are coming into that database. So just an amazing experience here. We launched this at FabCon Europe. So definitely get your hands on it if you can. And then from there, just let us know some feedback just as we continue to improve it on our way to general availability. Dataflow Gen 2, Power Query everything. It's the same user interface that you know, that you love, that I'm absolutely a fan of. Now at the back end of using Fabric's compute. So now we will stage your data into a lakehouse behind the scenes. We will throw a warehouse on top of it. We'll even build data pipelines for you in the behind the scenes for a certain set of connectors. So we can do high scale data ingestion. We can do high scale data transformation now, just all using Fabric components. The thing that you don't notice here is any added complexity. Because we're familiar here with Power Query interface, it's all the same thing that our Excel users use today, our Power BI users today, our Power Apps users who are building data flows over there, any n number of interfaces that have Power Query, the same points and clicks. Just now data ingestion at scale.
Can I ask a quick question, Alex?
Yeah, please.
So I know Power Query is starting to make its way into Data Factory more. Is data flows, like how would you differentiate Power Query and Data Factory versus data flows Gen 2?
Data flows Gen 2 is within Data Factory for
cool.
Fabric's Data Factory, yeah. And then if you were ever in, so if you're over in Azure Data Factory, they do have a Power Query activity, which is Power Query built on top of Spark. But for our version here within Dataflow Gen 2 in Microsoft Fabric, we're using the Fabric Warehouse as our compute layer.
Makes total sense.
Yeah, a little bit of a difference. Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Awesome. And then, of course, for us, it's all about connectivity. So having an out-of-the-box connector available for you, I think 170 plus here just across the data flows and also data pipelines. be mindful. We are still continuing to close some of the gaps. So for like, Alex, where's the SharePoint folder connector in the data pipelines? I know, I'm right there with you. It's not there yet. I know the team is actively working on these items, so just kind of stay tuned. The P in Fabric is for patience, so just a little bit of patience from us. We'll go ahead and get that delivered for you. But if you need to, write a custom Power Query function, or even mention kind of using a notebook there. Yeah. And then Fernando just kind of hit home on there, just a fast copy activity. That's where we're running a data pipeline for you underneath the covers, just for the Power Query and the Dataflow Gen 2 interface. So we can talk about that a little bit, Fernando, when we get in some demos. Awesome. And then this last one, this one kind of kills me. You don't even have to build your data pipelines anymore. We'll do it for you. So if you're like, well, I have this database, I really just want to replicate it directly into Fabric, we have this new technology that's called mirroring. So what we will do is we will create a mirrored version of your database. We will build the pipeline for you. We will manage it for you. So as new records are coming in, we'll just go ahead and replicate those directly into Fabric. You don't have to build anything anymore. You don't have to manage it anymore. So again, like, oh my gosh, I love Power Query. I love pipelines. But if there's an easy button, I may go for it. Krill, go ahead.
Alec, will you dimensionalize it for us as well?
Oh my gosh. I wish, right? Yeah. The more you can do upstream, always the better. As far upstream as possible, as far downstream as necessary. But please, nothing has changed in terms of the fundamentals. If you're doing a BI project, please just shape your data beforehand.
I'm just messing with you. Thank you.
Oh man, I loved it. I loved it. And then Snowflake mirroring is GA. Yes, for those kind of interested. Cool. And of course, here at the very end, artificial intelligence. So I worked with the team that was building the Copilot for Dataflows Gen 2, so the Power Query Copilot. I'm very excited for the capabilities and of course, just the ways that it can accelerate my development. So I'm a professional user. I can write in the advanced editor. I can write in the formula bar for my little Power Query M scripts. But if I can have a Copilot do it for me, oh my goodness, I may do that 9 out of 10 times. Things that it can do that I cannot do, it could chain activities together. So if I say, hey, tell me the top 3 states by largest order, that would have to be a group by, there would have to be a sort by, there would have to be a limit. So I could chain those activities together just in one simple sentence. So even I am thinking about it as a professional level. How does AI help me do my job faster, more efficient? And of course, if I'm an inexperienced user, like how can I just type in and have it do things for me where I don't know the UI buttons today? I don't know this technology perhaps, but can I use it as kind of a learning guide? So I encourage everyone, like, if you're not spending at least like 5 or 10 minutes out of your day today, if you have access to AI capabilities, like please find a way that it can like take you into the next day. Be like, oh my gosh, I like this thing. I'm gonna start using it in Teams, or I'm gonna start using it in Outlook. AI is fundamentally going to change the way we're working. Right now, I think we're all just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and see which things stick. But I'm very excited for it, at least in the ways that I've found extreme use. So I think with that, I'm done. I'm tired of this PowerPoint stuff. We're getting right into some live building demos. Again, I want to show you as much of the product tonight as possible. If you have questions, if you have comments, Greg, I'll kind of ask that you keep an eye on the chat. If there's anything that bubbles up that we need to stop, please let me know. Otherwise, come off mute, raise your hand, whatever else that needs to be done. I'm gonna go ahead and kick myself off camera too, just so you can concentrate on the session. But with that, let's get into it, Greg.
People, don't be shy. We want questions. This
Awesome.
is your time to ask Alex questions. You can ask him about cats or Data Factory.
Oh, please.
We're asking them as he goes.
So everything here looks and feels just like Power BI. We talked about it earlier for the people who are like, well, I raised my hand for Power BI, but I didn't feel comfortable raising it for Fabric. No, it's the same thing. It's the same website, same address. Power BI here at the very top. One of the things we have here, though, down at the bottom, just kind of a persona switcher. It doesn't necessarily do anything different in terms of like capabilities. It's just adding a couple different flavors here for you. I like to build a lot of Data Factory stuff, so I may just kind of hang out over there. So if I was to select this now, it tells me, here's some task flows, here's some recommended items, just things to kind of get me started for my day. But the whole concept of like a workspace, having monitoring, having browsing, creating, none of those have changed. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new workspace here if you don't mind. We'll just call this Data Factory Portland. I've got my premium capacity set here. If you're on a trial version, you can use that as well, or even a Fabric capacity. So I'm going to go ahead and press apply. Oh, amazing. All right, this is my favorite. Good to see my buddy Luke here hanging out as well. He's from St. Louis, and we do a lot of these kind of events together. But this is an empty workspace. There's nothing here. There's just this big icon. But there is something amazing here that maybe people, you're kind of missing out on. On the right-hand side here, we have this select to show task flow automatically and resize the list items, or I can pull this down. So choose from a pre-designed task flow or add a task to build one. Oh my goodness. Is anyone using task flows today? Let me know in the chat, because I'm a huge, huge fan. So I have this select a pre-designed task flow. All right, I've got general, I've got basic data analytics. I've got this data analytics with the SQL endpoint medallion. I keep hearing medallion everywhere I kind of go on the internet. Event and analytics, Lambda, sensitive data insights. That machine learning we were hearing about at the very beginning. Medallion. So again, I keep hearing about this term. If you don't mind, I'm going to zoom in here.
What does it mean?
So
what
medallion
does it mean,
says
Alex?
it organizes data in a lakehouse or warehouse while progressively improving its structure and quality. So as we go from a bronze, a silver to a gold, residing in higher quality data that is easier to analyze. All right, that actually sounds pretty cool. And then some of the required workloads here at the very bottom, it's suggesting Data Factory, again, a huge fan. Power BI, love it. Data warehousing, amazing. And then some different required items too. So I'm gonna go and press select on this task flow. Oh, cool. It looks like it did the work for me. I'm done. I don't want to build anything anymore. It's built out all the required items. Not quite. Not quite. So task flows are almost like a Visio diagram. So especially if you're kind of learning a little bit more about like big data and kind of engineering everything else, they use a lot of architectural diagrams. In this example, you can think of task flows as just like a Visio diagram, just like an architectural diagram here now within your workspace. So I've got a couple different items here on the left-hand side. I've got high volume data. I've got low volume data ingestion. I've got bronze data, initial process, silver data, blah, blah, blah. Of course, if I wanted to customize this and I can add more activities, so maybe I want to add a develop data task and I can chain these two together. Again, it is just a visual representation. None of these items are required to move from left to right, but it's just a good way to kind of organize your projects. So again, I'm a huge, huge fan of task flows. The reason why, if you don't mind, I'm going to zoom in here. I've got this bronze data. I want to start storing data. I want to get to this one lake that we were talking about. New item, right-hand side. Item types, lake house, warehouse, or maybe even a sample warehouse. Okay, this is pretty cool. Because I keep hearing and I keep seeing all this information about Fabric, and oh my goodness, look at all these different item cards. Like I'm used to Power BI data sets. I'm used to like paginated reports. I'm used to, data sets, semantic models, whatever they're calling them now. It's overwhelming to come out here and think about where to start with Fabric. But with a task flow, it says, hey, here's where I recommend that you start. All right, this is pretty easy then. So either go with the lake house or maybe start with the warehouse. For the very beginning, I just want to start storing data. Again, thinking back to kind of this whole process. So I'm going to call this my B _ Portland. Let's do that. Keep it nice and consistent. Don't turn that on just yet. It's still in public preview. There's some very interesting behaviors, but just go and press create. 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. Oh my goodness. So how many people here have deployed an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage before, set up all of the resources, set up all the configurations, set up all the networking, done all the tagging appropriately? How fast were you at that? Luke's has done that before. Yeah, but Luke, you've told me before, it's like 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. It takes forever. You're trying to make sure you click the right screen. We were done here in what, like 5 seconds, we deployed a data lake. This is crazy. So we now have our lake house that is set up and built around kind of our one lake. And then, of course, we want to go back to maybe our task flow. Now that we have it here, I see that my task has been assigned to the bronze data task. If I select a different task, my work space down here is automatically filtered. So especially just as my projects get a little bit bigger and bigger and bigger, it's just a great way, again, to have that interaction and organization just as my mental flow. All right, so we've got bronze data taken care of. We've got that lake house that we kind of saw down here. I want to do some ingestion here, so I'm going to do a new item again. Oh, awesome. So different menu suggestions, right? So if I'm doing the initial ingestion task here, I should probably think about a notebook, Spark job definition, Dataflow Gen 2, data pipeline, that copy job we just talked about, or maybe even like an event stream here if we had like a real-time use case.
Real quick, Alex.
Yeah,
Fernando
please.
had a question/comment, and I don't know if this threads in with what you were mentioning, saying, I still don't know where to assign the semantic model. Can you touch on that at all?
Yeah. So if we go over here on the right-hand side, we'd probably want to have it along with the data visualize. And then I've also used kind of a generic one like this general, because it kind of looks like a Power BI icon. But I would have that at the very kind of right-hand side here, just in terms of that mental process, Fernando. But
that's what that gold layer is for, right?
There are no hard or fast rules. It can be wherever you want.
This is true.
Yep. So again, the task flow is purely just a visual representation, just like a Visio diagram.
Love
Awesome.
the documentation. You know, what I was mentioning in the chat was there's not a lot of tools that give you this much granularity on what's happening in the data pipeline visually.
Yeah. So this is my favorite part here then. So let's build that first data pipeline, ingesting data at scale. Go ahead, Greg.
We have another question. Are we able to build a data quality framework crossing the entire task pipeline to have data altered in each task? Like data integrity, data quality checks is what Solar is asking.
Yeah, so I would say that that's going to be more at the item level. Again, I want you to step back. The task flow is purely just a visual diagram. It's really going to be up to you. What are you doing within your data pipeline? Are you going to be having some quality checks there, maybe calling a notebook? Maybe you've kind of got some scripts here, store procedures that you're running as well. That type of unit testing is really going to be at the item level. Awesome. Well, now we're in the data pipeline here. Again, this is a platform that's always looking to help you. You've never built a data pipeline before. Could we guide you through with kind of an assistant here? So no longer a wizard, they're now assistants. The templates that we just saw earlier, kind of in the visual diagrams here, if we were to select this, we get a ton of different options here, just pre-built out of the box, kind of deploy it, and then it'll have your just field wells that you'll have to configure, or the most important activity of them all, if we were to select this here, the copy data. So I really want to start copying data from an external source. So just thinking like Power Query, your get data button. So here, we're going to go to our source. We can choose from our connectors, just like we have in Power Query today, or we can go to more. And then hopefully this looks familiar for folks. Not the spinny wheel. Don't concentrate on that. It's this window right here. It's the get data window, just like we have in Power Query today. All the different connectors, it looks and feels almost like Power Query in terms of like that connectivity. If we have our one lake data already out here as two, we can navigate through kind of that resource. And then if we have Azure subscriptions, of course, it's yelling at me because I don't have one here in this demo tenant, but you can navigate directly to your Azure resources. You don't have to go to the Azure portal. You don't have to copy those crazy strings. It does it all here for you, just the get data window. But here I want to go ahead and start by copying some data just from out in the web. So again, I talked about a little bit of difference here in terms of connectors. We're continuing to add more and more to data pipelines, but M365 is already out here. So if you need to connect to graph data, go ahead and use that one. HTTP though, let's try this. I'm gonna paste this URL. It's yelling at me, Contoso sample. It recognized a previous one that I had created. Go ahead and press connect. And pizza data, oh my gosh, yes. I would love pizza data. The file format here, it is a binary. We're gonna go and do our settings. Compression type, we're just gonna go and select a zip deflate because this is a .zip file that I'm connecting from the internet. And then out in my advanced settings here at the very bottom. I'm going to go and deselect this, kind of preserving the zip file name because I just want to flatten if there are any subfolders within my directory. Going now to destination, it's that amazing B_Portland that we just created. I want to write this to my lakehouse. I can write it directly into those optimized tables that we talked about earlier, but we really wanted to think about this enrichment layer of moving from bronze to silver to gold. So I want to store it as raw as possible. So just directly from the original source type, directly into a file section. And then this way I can do maybe some transformations, maybe some enrichment, getting it out into that silver area. So we've got our destination set up, and I'm going to add this cool little dynamic content here now. So I selected this field well, add dynamic content pops up. If you're used to writing Power Automate formulas today, it has very similar here in terms of that functional language, like a concatenation, maybe some string or date manipulation, like formatting a date. You can go ahead and do this either through the UI or kind of writing it up here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this if you don't mind. And what we're going to do is we're just going to get the current time. So I'm going to use that UTC now in my central standard. I'm going to go ahead and convert this then with the format date to a format of YYYMMDD, and I'll kind of throw it out in this Contoso sales, just so you can kind of see this format out in our lakehouse. Go ahead and press OK. And then our copy behavior here, I'm going to go ahead and preserve. And then for my file format, awesome, we're still good there. Because documenting things is extremely important, we're going to go ahead and say we're going to get and unzip these files, give it a proper meaning here as well. And then one of my favorite activities here is going to be validate. Whew. Your pipeline has been validated, no errors were found. So before I even ran my thing, it looked at my pipeline, it looked at all my required fields, and it said, hey, there's nothing missing here. If I was to run this again, let's try this, validate. It tells you exactly where you need to go concentrate. So again, it would tell you here in the product as you're validating, just areas or fields that you need to fix. But we're gonna go and press save. Fixed, look at that amazing tag up here in the top. Awesome, so our save is done. Then we're gonna go ahead and run this pipeline as well. So in our bottom output window here, we'll hopefully see this get and unzip files running, accruing the queued status about every 5 seconds. It's going to go ahead and refresh this window for us, so I don't have to frantically click this button. And then this will run and just go out and grab that zip file from the HTTP, write it out into our lakehouse, out into our file section, and use that crazy formula that we just wrote. Awesome. Get and unzip files. Go to Portland.
Question for you.
Please.
Where do you perform column name changes?
Yes.
Spaces and normal business language. Fernando, you've got the greatest questions today.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So we would definitely want to do that as we were kind of moving it through kind of the enrichment process. So moving it from kind of the raw format here. So in this stage, again, we just copied the raw contents to get these out into our lakehouse. So we wrote these to our file section, that dynamic function that we were using, where we said YYYMMDD tomorrow. When we run it, it won't be 1023. We'll write it to 1024, the day after 1025. Just kind of creating some hierarchical organization just for all of our incoming data. So again, 2024, we navigate down to 1023, and then Contoso sales, and we can see all these files. If I wanted to, of course, I could create new subfolders here, maybe some photos. I think some people were making fun of me earlier, so let's go ahead and upload one here. See if I can't grab something from my desktop. Nah, these will be good. Let's do these. Why not? Why not? Awesome. Loading folder content. So again, just like OneDrive, you can store information out here. It doesn't have to be structured. It can be unstructured here. It can be pictures. It can be videos. It can be audio. Maybe you're having to do some machine learning on top of store shelves, kind of pointing at some images to see, how is data or how is this retail, SKU moving? Is it selling through? Whatever it may be. just storing all that information out here into the lakehouse. Cool. And yeah,
quick question for you, Mr. Alex.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of goes back to when you were doing the validation. What exactly was being validated again when you ran that validation?
Yep. So in this example here, it'll go through the field wells to make sure that all of them have been completed that have kind of the required asterisk. It does not do validation in terms of like the dynamic content. So if we messed up this formula a little bit, it'll yell at us here in the editor, but it won't like validate or check that for accuracy. But it's just any of these required components. So hopefully that helps. Especially if you're like, I'm going to write a ton of formulas. It's like, all right, do it. Check the community forums too. See if there's already existing patterns. Awesome. So we have data out here. We've got it now into kind of our bronze layer. I want to start moving it through this process, right? Because Fernando was saying, I need to really think about adding column spaces. I need to think about correcting a few of these data types that we're casting correctly. I probably want to start doing this here. By converting it though from our file section to that optimized format that we were talking about, that Delta Parquet, because then that way any engine I want to use is going to start doing it, just blazing fast reads, blazing fast performance as well, just as I start thinking about transforming it down the stage. So silver data, let's go ahead and create a silver layer here. Again, I've got lakehouse, warehouse, event house. Now it's suggesting, or maybe even the data mart. So let's do a lakehouse again. And I really like this consistency of kind of this prefix. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to do this S underscore. So B underscore was for bronze, S underscore for silver. Portland. Again, we've got this new lakehouse. Awesome. And then I told you, like, this is a connected experience. No matter where you're at, hopefully we can get you to the next place. So get data here in the top left. We could start creating a data pipeline again. We have new data flow gen 2, maybe an event stream. So for here, I actually want to create another data pipeline. So ingesting that data at scale. So we click this now. We call this my enrich tables. Again, these names don't mean anything. You can call them just according to your projects. Cool. So the assistant now is saying, hey, would you like me to step through, kind of walk you through this from top to bottom? You know what? I feel pretty comfortable with pipelines. I've been building them for a little bit. I love this menu, but let me go ahead and close out of this. Yes, cancel it, get out of here. And I want to start creating kind of a variable, because I think that folder path, I'll probably reference that just again and again and again. I really want to have a place where I can debug that easily. So I'm going to do set variable. And then, do I need to share my screen again, Greg?
I'm not
it's not shared.
Yep. Yeah. I think someone else had taken over for a hot moment there. So
there you go.
Awesome. Well, we're back up and running then.
Sorry about that.
So here in settings, if we were to do the validate, again, no variables have been defined. So it's telling us, hey, if you click this, it'll take you to the exact same screen that it wants you to configure. So in this example, I want to go ahead and create a new variable, call this file directory. This will be a string data type. And then I want to have this be dynamic again. So as I click into the field box, it says, hey, you can have this be dynamic, or I could certainly write it static. So I could come out here every day and do 2024, 10, 24, and then tomorrow I'll open it up and I'll fix it to 1025 and then 1026. And you're like, Alex, that would be so painful. I agree. So let's make it dynamic. So let's do that same formula here. Again, concatenating just Y by Y, MMDD, kind of there for our storage format. I'm gonna go and press OK. And then this looks good. So let's give it a kind of a nice, meaningful name then, if you don't mind. We'll just call this our set file directory. Cool. And I'm going to do a get metadata. So here in the activities tab, ribbon should feel like M365, right? So just like navigating through Excel, navigating through Power Query, navigating through Office, whatever it may be, go to the activities and press get metadata. And I want to get some metadata out of my folder. So if I go to my connection, my bronze layer here, I want to look through my files section because that's where we're storing our data, right? And I want to go ahead and I want to reference that directory that we just created. So that variable here on the right-hand side, I want to reference the file directory variable. Press OK. Awesome. And then here for my field list, I want to go ahead and get the child items that are out in that directory. So we get a little bit of information. And I'm going to call this my get items in folder. And then this is the toughest part about data engineering. I know that they're requesting big salaries. We had the recruiter on earlier, Scott, and, this is what it's all about for big data engineering. We're going to take this button right here, this on success. So whenever this thing is done, I want to go ahead and just pick this up, drag and drop it all the way over here to get data. Whew. Now I know what those data engineers are up to all the time. Just like that, dragging and dropping. So we've got our file directory. We've got our get items in folder. We can go ahead, validate early, validate often. No errors, amazing. I love seeing that. And I'm going to go ahead and press run. So it'll go and ask me to save. Yes, please stretch before these big tasks. So that is what we created right here just now, is we're going to let that run. We created a conditional path. So if I zoom in here, we've got 4 different options. We've got on skip. So maybe we're going to skip an event as we're kind of doing some testing. We have an on success. So whenever this thing is done, we get our green box. Go ahead and move on to the next thing in the line. We have our on failure. So maybe if something failed, I want to go ahead and send a Teams activity, right? To let someone know, hey, this thing is broken. Please go take a look. Or I can just have an on completion. So whether it passes, whether it fails, whether there's something wrong, just go ahead and move on to the next task. So I can delete this here. And on this variable, I'll just say just on completion. So this formula, I'm not really too worried about. It'll be good from kind of here to the end of time. We have our get items in folder activity now. We have our input, we have our output. So if we look at the output, I'll kind of zoom in here if you don't mind. Child items, we have that dim customer table we saw. We have the dim date, dim employee, dim geography, dim product store, and then also our fact online sales. So we're able to go out and kind of think about this from the perspective of, all right, every file that's out here, I really want to start applying maybe like a process here over every file. What is that thing called in programming, where you do a thing over and over again to the same file? What is that called? Didn't anyone think of that? Not recursion, because we would have an exit, right? Because we'd eventually have like a end of file, a loop. It's like a for each. Is that what you're thinking, Mark? For each loop. All right. So if we go to this ... we have these control flows. We have a do until, maybe Mark is thinking. We also have like a for each item. We could have if branches. We could have switches just the same. So maybe like introducing some conditional logic. So I want to do this for each, if you don't mind. All right. So we've got these 2 items. And I want to make sure that whenever this thing is successful, that we move on to this next task. So get metadata on success. Go ahead and bring that over. So I now have this for each loop. One conditional path here, another conditional path here, and then we look good. So we're going to call this just our for each file. And then our settings here, which items to a reference. All right, so add dynamic content. I have my activity outputs, right? We just saw some of those from our output window. Child items is what we had selected. So get items in folder, and then for each one of those child items. So from that output, grab the child items array, that list. Press OK. All right. Plus, add a new activity. Again, here's my canvas of options. I can call different components of Fabric like notebooks, scripts, KQL. I've got my conditional flows up here for that if, this, then that, my switches, my filters, my weights. The most important activity, though, will always be your copying of data. So that ingestion, moving it from source to destination. So let's add that copy data. Let's get a little small here. So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to drill into this canvas. I'm going to click on this edit. And then here at the very top, just like thinking about like a SharePoint website where you have like a breadcrumb trail of where you're at, you can easily navigate back and forth. So just kind of drilling into kind of this layer here within your data pipeline. Yeah, so the question here with respect to data pipelines, substitute deployment pipelines is for kind of version control and CI/CD. So continuous integration, continuous deployments. That's more around like controlling your code, kind of moving things from like a dev test prod perspective, where data pipelines is focused on data ingestion. Awesome.
Real quick question.
Real quick answer.
I think I know the answer. Do
Let's hear
data
it.
factory pipelines substitute deployment pipelines?
That's what I just answered.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. You're good. You're good. All right. So our source here is going to be our bronze layer. Again, we want to grab those files here. So I click on the file path. Does anyone remember how to get to that dynamic content? I don't see it. How do you get to dynamic content?
You click on the directory thingy.
You have to click on it. Oh, awesome. Yeah, Crow is right. So if we want to get dynamic properties here, we have to click into those items. So I clicked in directory, add dynamic content, then shows up. I want to reference that variable that we had been talking about earlier. So if I go to variables here, just a little bit on the right-hand side, reference file directory, amazing. So for this file directory, and then what's my file name? So I'm going to use my for each file. So my current item, and then there was two different properties, if I recall from the output. There was one that was the file name, and then there was another one that was file type. So the key of that was .name. Awesome. So let's go ahead and do that here. So for that file directory, and then for each item within it, I want you to go and extract out the name. And then let's move into, let's make sure our compression type. All right, we're good there. File format is going to be Parquet. Was the files that we were copying from. And then we're going to move into our destination. I want to go ahead and store this into our Silver Portland. And I actually want to optimize this. So I want to have that optimized file format that we were talking about earlier. Does anyone remember that file format? What was that called?
Is it Parquet?
Parquet, yeah. Awesome. Parquet. So tables, if we click on the field well, we get that add dynamic content. I remember that again. And then from here, I'm going to use that cool functions. So I want to do a little bit of string manipulation because I remember each one of those file names has the dim something dot parquet. Parquet. I don't need that Parquet file because, Fernando was worried about the names of his columns, the names of his tables. He was saying, is there any way that we can make that a little bit more friendly? Absolutely. So I want to split that. So anywhere where there's that dot Parquet, I want to go ahead and get rid of that. So I'm going to go ahead and use this here. Split that current item, period. My name property, right? That's what we're referencing. It's going to be single quotes here so that anywhere at the very, the period, and then I want to use the first item within the array. So just a square bracket there and then 0. So in this way, it'll create a two value array. So the first one will be the actual name, and then the second one will be that Parquet extension. Cool. Amazing. And then when I think about dim tables and I think about fact tables, at least from like a business intelligence project, right? My dim tables, they're relatively small. I'm okay to just truncate and load this every day. Not really too worried about it. They're small in volume, but those large tables, they keep growing over and over with time. I really want to think about that from like an append perspective. I'm looking at this table action. What is it, like a combo box, right? We only have two options. We can either do append or we can do overwrite. No, interesting. So even the checkboxes here, even the combo boxes can be dynamic. So as I hover above these, I have add dynamic content. So we'll do kind of a if condition here, if you don't mind. So kind of a logical. So if the property here, maybe a string, maybe if it starts with, right? And then our current item, dot name. If it starts with that dim, I want to go ahead and do an overwrite. And then, of course, if it's on the false, I just want to go ahead and append. So anything that is a dim table here for my prefixes, overwrite them. Otherwise, append. Press OK. So even our table action now is dynamic. Let's go back up to our main branch. Everything looks good here. What's that button we should do every time before we run a pipeline? That's that button we should press. Just a little sanity check.
Validate?
Validate.
Validate, yes. Early, validate often, as Sean Marable would say. So our pipeline has been validated. No errors were found. I love it. I can either press save, or if I press run, it'll ask me to save and run. Let's go ahead and do that now.
Love your throwback to the Azure user group, Alex.
Oh my gosh, you have to, man. Yeah, he's incredible. All right, so we've got the set variable, we've got our get metadata, we've got our for each here. It's kind of going through our conditional paths. So yes, set file directory was successful. Loading activity runs. Oh my goodness. Get items in folder was successful. It's already kicked off all these different copy tables. So it's running all these in parallel. Wow. So when I think about like Power Query, it's kind of like a sequential, it's got like a throttling limit there in terms of the number of activities it can run. Here for this activity, it's running them all though directly in parallel. So for each file, if we were to look at our inputs, we could kind of see which file it's working on. Oh my goodness, it's already succeeding. Already in progress, more success. This copy table's here at the very bottom, 38 seconds. 43. I'm going to probably take a guess here. It's got to be one of our larger tables, right? Yes, it's in append mode here. I can see that here in the JSON response. And then, yeah, this is our big fact table, right? So let's give this one just a quick moment here.
Hey, Alex, when you're writing the dynamic content, what language is that?
It's just an expression language here within data pipelines, but because data pipelines are built from like the same framework as Power Automate and Azure Logic apps, if you're familiar with writing formulas over in those applications, it will feel very familiar over here. But they have a very well documented language just for data pipelines if you were wanting to learn kind of those different activities. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks.
Awesome. And we'll let this last one run here. We're getting so close on this big fact table. Come on, spinny wheels. We're almost there. Success. All right. Ran successfully. Data written. How many rows do we have? Quite a few. Data read, rows read, 127, 20 million rows in about a minute and 47 seconds. Not too bad. Not too bad. So if you go over, remember we started here with our raw file content over here and kind of our file section. We now created those optimized tables in our silver. I don't see them here yet though. So if I press sync up here at the very top for this refresh, I go ahead and it'll start processing these. So my unidentified tables, oh my goodness, it's almost there. So I'm gonna do one more refresh. Boom. So here are those optimized Delta Parquet tables that we were just talking about. So if I want to start building a new semantic model directly on top of my lakehouse and get rid of any dataset refreshes. So maybe right now you're spending, 3 hours to build a data flow and refresh it. You're spending another 2 hours to get it loaded into your Power BI model. No more. We will go directly against these tables in the lake. So you've eliminated all that refresh time. Maybe you want to start writing a notebook directly on top of these tables. So maybe we do kind of a new notebook. Give this a quick moment here. Loading your notebook. So all of your professional developers here connecting out into your lakehouse. Yes, skip to or get out of here. Drag and drop, write some Spark directly on top of these tables. It's preparing the cluster. It's getting it up and running. Maybe you want to write Python. Maybe you want to write all these different crazy T-SQL notebooks now, I think that they just released as well, all available from the same optimized tables because they're out in our OneLake, ready for any engine, ready for any language to take advantage of. Look at this, just one quick moment here while it's running this spinning wheel. Even DAX, yes, even DAX with the SemPy and the semantic link labs. Cool. Spark jobs 1 of 1 is done, in progress, getting ready to load. Awesome. So there's our data. There's some data validation and quality, all using kind of the low code interface, just preparing it for our colleagues who may be writing PySpark, who maybe want to write SQL, who maybe want to start using a data flow to enrich this, which is what we're going to do next. So if you go back then to our workspace, we had the initial process here, but I don't see that data pipeline that we just created where we kind of move data from bronze into silver, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click on this paper clip here, assign a previously created item. I see my enriched tables here. I'm going to go and select that now, press select. Awesome. High volume left. We have our Contoso sample where we're getting that data from the HTTP. We're loading that into our bronze layer here in our lakehouse. We then take that data from bronze and we use another pipeline here to enrich our tables into silver, which we've got ready. And I want to further transform this just a little bit into kind of a golden layer here. So new item for gold. Maybe this time I want to go with the warehouse, but I'm going to kind of stick with the lakehouse pattern just because I'm comfortable with this right now. So let's do lakehouse. I'm going to use that same pattern here for gold. We probably want to do G underscore Portland, right? So B for bronze, S for silver, G for gold. Deploying an Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage, again, underneath the hoods here with OneLake. We know this is where we throw all of our data, all of the raw contents and files, all those optimized tables for any engine to read will be up here in our table section. So we want to go back to get data. I want to do new data flow Gen 2. Yes, thank you. Toast notification. Love seeing those everywhere I look. Awesome. So this is the place I know. This is the place that I love here with Power Query. I'm going to go ahead and close out this Copilot pane if you don't mind. I'm going to go to Get Data. I'm going to go to More. Get Data window, just like what we saw in the data pipeline. So again, the two teams becoming one here, unifying the experiences so it all feels very familiar. I can go to OneLake Data Hub. I can see all of my different items here that I have access to, or one of my favorites. I just use the search bar. So I do S underscore Portland. Of course, if I had an XLSX file extension, it will recommend that I use the Excel connector. So if you paste an address, if you paste a file extension, it will have all that for you. So .csv says you should use those connectors. So if I was to type in a lakehouse, it recommends the lakehouse connectors, but S underscore Portland. Let's do that. It found it for me. Press connect. Excel absolutely is a database if the needs of the business are not met. I don't want to see that message. I was an Excel database person. IT didn't give me what I needed, but I was able to get the job done. And then they gave me a database, and oh my goodness, the world was my oyster. But choosing data, I've got this product category, subcategory, and product. And then I also have this kind of, let me take a look here, dim customer, and then kind of a dim geography down to join. Do create. Cool. So I've got all this visual diagram view up here. I've got my queries list. Again, this is Power Query. Right-hand side here, if I right-click this query, view data source query, because we created those optimized tables, remember, these are out in our lakehouse. We're writing SQL against these. If you recall, again, we're using the strength of Fabric to now do high-scale data ingestion, high-scale data transformation, just using the Power Query interface. So we're going to use the warehouse behind the scenes to do these transformations. And then we just want to maintain query folding as we go. So I've got dim customer, I've got dim geography. I want to go ahead and merge these two now just into a new query. So let's go just kind of merge queries on this one. Dim customer to dim geography. And then something amazing just happened. I don't know if anyone caught it. Top right-hand corner. I'm going to zoom in. An amazing light bulb just popped off. I said, hey, Alex. I looked through the schemas. I recognize that there may be some columns that kind of match up here. Here's some suggestions that I have. It says dim customer matches geography key from this table to this table. I say, oh my gosh, I love this. I didn't have to scroll left and right and make sure I found the right columns. It just AI is infused right there. So press that button.
That's pretty sweet, Alex.
I know. Doesn't require additional licensing. There's no Copilot there. That's purely just the built-in AI, kind of within Power Query.
Always
so press
check the
OK.
light bulb.
Always, please. Always check the light bulb. And then just like Power Query, we can go here within our data preview. We'll expand out that last column here in the top right-hand corner. Get rid of our geography key because it's a bit redundant, right? That's what we use for the join. Then press OK. The right-hand side, green, green, green. And that's what I like to see. All these steps will be query folded. If we were to right-click again, view data source query, we're using the Fabric warehouse behind the scenes, again, to kind of do these transformations just at scale. Because merges and joins and appending data, those are expensive. Those take a long time. But we're using these optimized table formats. We're using the Fabric items to do this here. So I'm going to actually get rid of this data destination. I don't know if you saw, but I actually configured all of the destinations here for my queries all in one go. You're saying, Alex, I didn't see you do anything. You're right. Because I used the front door of my lake house, it then says, all right, this is your default destination. So here in all these examples, it's already pre-configured that saying this is your workspace, this is your lake house where you want to go and throw these. We're going to go and write out here as your default location. You don't have to set up anything, Alex. I say, thank you. Thank you, Microsoft Fabric. Otherwise, I'd have to go to this connections. I'd have to go through this entire validation process. I'd have to find the correct lake house. So what were we in Portland, Data Factory Portland? I'd have to select this, wait on a spinning wheel. Spinning wheel, select the G_Portland. I then have to go to next, make sure that all my tables are named correctly. You'd have to configure if you want to do dynamic or to do a fixed schema, don't want to replace or append. It did it all for me.
So, Alex, when you're in dataflows, is that just validating the first 1,000 records like in Power Query?
Yeah, so it's going to be the same here in terms of like a row evaluation in the preview window. So in this example, I think it's got like the first 100 rows loaded.
And does it let you release that and validate the entire data set?
Well, what are you thinking there,
if
Mark?
you want to? Like in Power Query, when it says 1,000 rows right down there, you can click there and ask it to validate the entire table.
Yep. So right there. So if we were to do column profiling, you can change the column profiling to the entire data set. If you do exact same process right here in terms of like validation, if you're looking at like distributions, you just need to turn those capabilities on. So enable column profiling, turn on or off. Yep. And then if you noticed here, we have the M script. As I hover above different steps, I don't have to kind of drill into the advanced editor if I don't want to. I can see all these just as I hover above. That's just a nice one of those benefits here within the Power Query online authoring experience. So what do we have here? Show script and step callout.
Then I assume you have a formula bar option that you can turn on too.
Yeah, so formula bar right here.
It's right there. Okay.
And then we can also do the full script as opposed to just a single step. So if you really want to treat this like a full-blown IDE, all configurable. Awesome. So step scripts, so we've got our merge here done. This query looks good. I'm going to actually disable this one because I just want to be brought into dim customer only. Dim product. I'm going to go and merge these here. If we don't mind, let's do merge queries. Subcategory, that amazing light bulb right in the top right-hand corner, it found a match. Looks good. Contoso has the cleanest data, 2,000 matching rows, so interjoining. And then let's do one more here for dim category at the very end after we expand our columns. Let's expand this now. Get rid of that first subcategory. I've got category key. And then one more join here, combine. Awesome, category. Oh, found 3 different matches. So product category key to product category key to category label, or subcategory description to category description. So it's not just an exact match. It could be approximates too if it finds something similar. What is everyone thinking here on this match type? Which one should we go for? Should be description to description, key to label? What do you think? Category key to category key?
Pop quiz.
Yeah, I'm thinking category key. Yeah. Let's do the first one. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. What's the trick question here? I'm testing the machines too, right? I'm trust but verify. All right. So AI got it right. Let's go and do this category key. We don't need that anymore. And then if we're tired of staring at our data, if we have a lot of things, we can switch over to schema view here. And let's get rid of all of our keys because we don't really need those, right? Like where you have a bunch of these IDs. We don't need those for our business intelligence projects. So let's get rid of that. Schema tools, just remove those columns. Maintaining folding as we go. So that looks amazing here again. I get rid of these because I don't want to write these to our final destination. Because again, I'm in that enriching phase here where I'm getting our data ready, getting it prepared, maybe renaming columns, kind of a Fernando had asked earlier. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and write these now into our gold lakehouse. So our gold Portland. Let's do publish. I see dataflow 1 down here. It's just validating kind of our mashup definition here, making sure that all my queries were good. I don't see that it has a task assigned yet. Where should we put this dataflow task? Where do you think we should put it here on our task flow? Any thoughts? Which task should we assign this dataflow to? Should it go in the initial process?
We got further transform, maybe.
Further transform? Yeah, I think that would make sense too. So let's do assign a previous, right? We use the paperclip. We've got this dataflow 1. I'll give it a more meaningful name here in a bit. Let's do select. And then if we select further transform, we just see that single item here. So this way we can go ahead. And I've got too many items here. Let me close out of some of the stuff. Awesome. All right, we'll let it do its thing. I'll get the properties here in a moment. Cool. Spinning wheel, spinning wheel. And then this should be done in just a quick moment. All right, well, let it do a thing. I'll refresh. All right, well, let me go to golden data then. We may start seeing some of this table starting to show up just within this. Loading lakehouse. Yes, it's got unidentified 2 different files, the dim customer and product. Maybe if I refresh this metadata one more time. Amazing. So I've got my enriched data here out in my lakehouse. Some of the silver data, though, like I didn't have to enrich it. It was kind of ready to go. So I actually want to move some of that data from silver into the gold layer just to kind of get it ready for serving for my end users. So I'm actually going to click this ... and I'm going to create a shortcut to that data. So I don't want to create a duplicate of it. I don't want to pay for extra storage. I just want to copy it from a different location here as kind of a reference pointer. So this way I can say, go out to OneLake, go to my silver layer. I want to go ahead and grab a few of those tables that were out here. I could even shortcut to my files here if I wanted. We enriched our dim customer, so I don't need that. I want my dim date. I don't need employee. What else do we have? I think we need employee. We don't need geography. We don't need these because we brought those in. We need store and we need factor online sales. Press next. I'm going to create some shortcuts for these. Dim date, dim employee, dim store, factor online. Press create. Whew. Awesome. Left-hand side. We're now pointing to data that's in a different lakehouse. So especially if you're thinking about like collaborating with other teams, other departments, they've got some data in their lakehouse and you'd really like them to share it with you. You don't want to duplicate it. You don't want to have different versions of it. We kind of talked about those version histories earlier, right? Like they're a pain. We can now share data just across layers. So in this example, I've got a couple, transformed tables enriched, ready to go. A couple others that were just pure straight from the source. We just optimize these into the Delta Parquet table format that any engine can use across Fabric. So as I'm a BI, data engineer, building data visualizations, building semantic models, I can build a new semantic model directly here on top of these tables. So press new semantic model. I see my tables. I've got tables from different locations, right? So some of these are from gold, some of these are from silver. Portland model, press confirm. And then we'll get this spinny wheel going. And then Greg, I'll probably kick us off here in a little bit just with a Q&A because we were getting so close to the very end.
Hey, it is no rush. You've been
awesome,
crushing it.
Awesome. All right, please wait, spinny wheels, creating those items for us, creating our direct lake model.
Spin.
I know. And then for those in the chat, just kind of curious, have you built a direct lake model as of yet? Or is that a new term that you're kind of hearing maybe for the first time, or you've seen it just through like documentation, but you're not really sure what it is? Let us know. Love to know if you've started building direct lake models.
I would be impressed. Anybody?
I am also.
I know I've kicked the tires. Nice. I'm on to welcome, by the way.
Yeah. So here, just like Power BI, dragging and dropping relationships between tables, right? So I can press save, validating directions. Yes, we're good there. I can add one more here. Let's do customer key. To store key, let me do employee key then. Dim customer to dim customer, customer key to customer key. SML is in the house. Yes. Awesome. So we can continue to build relationships just like we do in Power BI Desktop today. You can also build directly models in Desktop just as of the latest release. So we built relationships between tables that says storage mode direct lake. We could write a new measure on top of this if we wanted. So for those who love writing DAX, just come out here in the browser. We can do total sales. It has IntelliSense, so I love that too equally. And I want to do my fact online sales, sales amount. Of course, you can come up with something crazy complicated for your needs. Dim date though, fact online sales. Build a new report on top of this. Let's go ahead and press this now. Little fabric icon, come on. Awesome. So all of our tables here on the right-hand side. Maybe we don't look at this by month name. And I don't look at the total of this total sales amount. Go ahead and drop this in here. I'll give that a quick moment just to go ahead and load that data in. And dim date, maybe a year. So on the slicer. Right, I don't want to stop it because I know it's loading the first time. And after that, it'll be fast. Come on, there we go. And if we scale that back out, was it 21 million rows, I think, just a blink of an eye here in direct lake mode. If you recall, we didn't load any of this into memory. There was no importing of the data. There's no more data set refreshes. All of those are gone. All this done directly against those files, right? So let me go ahead and save this. Portland report. Do I even want to send it to a task? Yes, it's asking me. I don't want to do that if it doesn't tell me. Maybe it does. Data visualize. Woohoo. And then Krill, I see the hand raised. Please jump in.
Yeah, so Alex, at this point, excuse me, since we've built everything kind of online, right, even for the Power BI steps, are
Hold on,
we
what did you just
able?
say? We did everything online?
Yeah, right.
So we could have been on a MacBook doing this. We could have been on a Linux machine doing this. We could have been on a Raspberry Pi doing this.
Exactly, but
Oh my
here
gosh.
comes the desktop enthusiast, right? Like, are they still going to be able to sort of work in the Power BI desktop off of this, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just mentioned that we have direct lake model building and editing now supported within Power BI Desktop just as of, what is it, September release or October release? I don't know what month we're on. Time is a flat circle, it feels like, but um, they absolutely can do that still in desktop and publish up in here into their workspace. If you saw me though, like maybe I don't have a good laptop. Maybe I don't have the correct operating system if it has to be a Windows. We didn't leave the web browser today at all. And we did all of this. That's incredible to think about. For all the people who have not had access to Power BI, right? Because they had to get Parallels or they had to get some other virtual machine on their Mac system. All done here, just through the web. Building Power BI reports, obviously dragging and dropping. There's, if you're really in the visual enthusiast, you're like, yeah, but it doesn't have this button or this button or this button. I totally get it. But for a lot of people who are just building the dragging and dropping, same functionalities up here, right? Drag something on the canvas, start building it. So again, if we were to throw this out here, total sales, it's going to visualize that 4 billion some odd for us. Add this slicer here. What do we have? Like month, we could store that into month. Direct lake mode. So if you're spending hours and hours of your month doing data set refreshes, if you're paying for capacity and you're spending all that time watching spinny wheels waiting for data to be imported, it could be time that you could be saving just by getting your data out into OneLake, getting it enriched into that file format, allowing your data scientists to start running experiments on top of it, letting your BI developers starting to build reports on top of it, letting your Spark developers here with their notebooks, whatever it is, because it is in that optimized file format, because it's out in the OneLake, any engine, any tool, any experience can all collaborate together.
You haven't said all that. I may be getting into some NDA territory here, but like, is Power BI desktop winding down?
No, not at all. We're deeply committed to that as kind of the de facto, but a lot of our investments here, whenever customers are asking, Mac OS, when are you going to bring it there? We want to make a operating system agnostic experience. So everything we did in the web here today, if you're a hardcore Power BI developer, I'd be like, there's things in desktop you just can't do in the web. It's on web to close those gaps in terms of like the visual development experience. But everything from like a modeling perspective, you have access to the XML endpoint. If you want to start using Tab or Editor, all the other applications here. So what is it? Server settings, you can have that there. Here with our Lakehouse, if you want to connect to it from a SQL endpoint, if you want to use this in a Tableau, because you don't have a warehouse or you don't have a Lakehouse over there, but you want to have like a SQL-based layer, here you go. Here's the connection string. Very similar here. If you want to get into storage, if you have external applications, you want to write to these file sections like an ABFS file path. It's an Azure Blob file system. Loading your Lakehouse, loading your Lakehouse, loading your Lakehouse. Come on, come on. It's getting so close.
Thanks, Alex.
No, I love the questions.
So is the intent to close more of those gaps and develop the service version more closely to desktop over time?
Absolutely. And at a certain point, I believe that we'll have, this is like in the future, right? Like, because we can deploy to the cloud weekly, there may be a time period we'll see new features landing up in the service before they hit desktop, which will kind of be the monthly release cadence, right? But we're not there yet.
Yeah.
Full transparency. Like, good buddy Chris Hamill that loves report development, you'll have to rip Power BI desktop out of his out of his hands, right?
His cold blood hands. Or
Yeah.
his cold blood hands.
Awesome. So we're good there. Of course, here we can add more. So if we were to go into kind of our enriching tables pipeline, I may want to reframe my semantic model anytime that there's new tables being added to my direct lake model. So I can add semantic model refresh here to my data pipeline. Maybe I can add a Teams activity as well for failure events, whatever it is. Full customization and or orchestration here, just using these data factory kind of components. But let me jump back in here, because you saw a lot. Hopefully it gave you some ideas tonight. Just like if like I'm from a Power Platform background, but I think I can do that whole data pipeline thing with like the validation there helping me along the way, and then maybe like those conditional paths for orchestration, have this one activity move on to the next. Especially centering around like data flows, using that as kind of a great way to start writing those optimized tables into your lakehouse or into your warehouse or even into your event house if you wanted, whatever it may be. And then just getting data ready and accessible for that direct lake mode, especially if you're like from a Power BI background. There's some data factory labs here, and then of course just the Microsoft Learn documentation. I'm always a huge fan of this as well. If you've not taken advantage of the free trials of Microsoft Fabric, please look into it. aka.ms/try-fabric, 60 days, no commitment. So you don't have to have a credit card, no Azure subscriptions. You can just sign up, get started. If you contact me on day 59, you say, hey, Alex, I tried that Fabric thing, just wasn't for me. Awesome. No commitment, once again. But I hope that you find enough experiences out there to be like, this is cool. I think I could do this. Yeah, I started building these things, and I showed it to my boss. I showed it to my department. We really think this Fabric thing could help us. Amazing. That is my background. Again, I'm an Excel person. I'm a Power BI dashboard in a day attendee. These are new tools for my tool belt. I'm just having fun. So hopefully for those who are in attendance tonight, a little bit of that passion, enthusiasm came through. But I just think that this is so cool for a lot of us who maybe not have this traditional background, just to have a little bit more accessibility to features and capabilities that we've long needed. But with that, Greg, I will pass over to you.
Whew. Well, before we pass anywhere, I would love for everybody to please come off mute, share your camera. Let's all give Alex an awesome round of applause for such a great presentation. We were all in awe. How does he present, talk, think, make jokes, and monitor the chat all at once? We will never know. But way to go.
Thank you. And then Copilot is not included within trial. Copilot is not included within trial because I knew people were going to yell at me about that one. It's not there. But if you have any GPUs that you're looking to sell, let me know. Everyone's looking for GPUs. So an old graphics card that maybe you played World of Warcraft on, I don't know. Just let us know.
I've got a few selling them at a premium.
Awesome. Then, Hemant, I see your hand is raised. Feel free to jump in the conversation. You're on mute if you're speaking. Awesome.
Yes. Is this relevant for the data engineer who are working as a data engineer, that data fabric? How is the different between from the Azure Synapse? What are the major difference between the data Azure Synapse to Azure Fabrics?
Yeah, so I would say like surface area, we're pretty well in terms of like activities in comparison. I think if you're to talk like engineering team, they're like, we've got 95% of parity. It's the last mile stuff now between the two that is kind of like the friction of like, oh my gosh, I would move everything from Azure Data Factory if I could. One of those is going to be dynamic connections. So especially if you're doing that with linked services in Azure Data Factory, that's on our upcoming roadmap for the upcoming semester, October through April. And then the other one is going to be Key Vault support, which is moving into kind of a private preview here. So definitely speak with your Microsoft account teams if that's something you're interested in participating within. Otherwise, they'd be like, if you're doing a lot of things in Data Factory today, it'll probably feel very familiar if you're looking at a migration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, lovely question.
Great question. Anyone else? Any other
So Alex,
Q&A?
think it was a great idea to let the Excel people in at the grown-ups table of the enterprise?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think that was smart? Really?
Absolutely. Yes. I think, again, I go back to like the Excel is not a database hashtag, right? Like it was the only tool that was at my disposal when I needed it. If you would have given me better tools to do my job, oh my goodness, like what magic could I have done, right? And especially like Greg and a lot of the partners here that are on the call, like their job is to hopefully get into a customer account and like create and inspire change. Like, hey, here's what we think that this could do to transform your business. And a lot of that is starting out with people who are actually working on solving the problem of the business. IT is so far removed and distant where I'm like, better tools in the people's hands. It goes so far. Well, Greg, I know you and the Portland crew are probably wanting to get out of here, moving on to the next thing, but I just wanted to say thank you everyone for hanging out in your attendance and also for hanging out in groups like this. User groups are truly where we make lifelong friendships and like spreading this inspiration, ideation. Nobody knows everything, but my goodness, if we could share just a little bit of what we do know, it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, everybody.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Have a great evening.